Is it on yet?
No. Hi, everybody. It's Nancy Reyes with For Your Canine
And Joanne Swicky with For Better For Worse.
on the road again. I just got home from Traverse City, Michigan, and Joanne's on the way home from Wisconsin. So here we are. And ironically, that was the theme. That's the theme of today's Facebook Live is traveling with your dog. So we're gonna chat about different aspects of traveling with your dog and how to get ready. And the reason we came up with this theme was we are, people are traveling more with their dogs. Those of you who compete, it's trial season, so just some tips and things that'll hopefully help you make travel with your dog a little bit more comfortable and easy to do. Because we travel with our dogs a lot, so uh, we've been in many different situations where it's been a little bit we've needed things that we didn't think we needed and all those kind of things. So we wanted to just reach out. And so if you have any questions or anything that you want to talk about, because there's a lot to cover. So it's a matter of if you have a specific question or you have specific things you want to know, just go ahead and put it in the comments, and we'll try to do our best to answer those questions. Um, so anyway, whether you're traveling on vacation or whether, because I think more and more people are taking their dogs on vacation, more and more. More places are allowing dogs, and and then those of you who do competitions, it's really we travel with our dogs a lot more. So we just wanted to talk about crates for the car, and also somebody actually sent me an email or posted. They wanted to ask a question about when you pick up a puppy, which ironically Joanne and I both have done when you get a puppy and how to transport them and get them home and all that stuff. So we're gonna touch on that as well because somebody did mention that or ask that question. So I thought that was a really good point, right? Um, getting bringing the pup, how to bring a puppy home, how to travel with the puppy, and how to make that more comfortable for the puppy. So I thought that was a pretty interesting thing. So first thing we're going to talk about is car travel with your dog. So car travel. Uh, I am not a big proponent of not having your dog tethered somehow, whether it be in a crate or in a seatbelt or a harness, seatbelt harness. Um, it's very dangerous to ride around with a dog that's not not in a safe place, right? That's not in a you know confined, because if they move around or if you have to brake suddenly, they can actually get really hurt if they're not in a crate. There's also an argument for people that say, well, their dog can get stuck in a crate if in an accident. I'm sure that's true, but just like anything, same with seatbelts, right? Some of us might survive an accident with the seatbelt, or maybe the seatbelt might cause more issue. But I think the majority of situations, being in a crate or being in a seatbelt is safer for the dogs, no matter what. So, and it also protects you if you have a dog that has to move around a lot. I had a beagle that she used to walk around the car the whole time. This is before I knew better, and so we had to quickly put her in a crate. And so all my dogs travel in crates in the car because it's just a um, safer for them. Yeah, just traveled to Scentwork Trail on my hour and a half, but still crated. Yeah, I'm big on crates. So now there's lots of different crates you can crash proof crates that you can purchase. So it depends on your budget and what you want to spend, but there's quite a plethora of different crates that you can get for your dogs that you can use. So it really depends on your budget and what you want. What do you want to what do you want to spend? I do have the transport kennels in my car. Joanne has regular wire crates, which is what I had for a very, very long time. There's Roughland kennels, there's Gunner kennels. There's a whole bunch of different ones that you can probably look at. Again, the big thing is we lost Joanne. Oops. The big thing is you want to definitely hello, you're back.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm in rural Wisconsin, so it's coming and going. But
yes. Yeah.
The one other thing that I would say, right? No matter what kind you have, make sure they're secured. Not just a kennel. Make sure it's secured somehow, or you have to. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can. Yes.
How about now? Am I back?
Yep, I can hear you now. So
I have two SUV side by sides, which are actually pretty strong wires because of the way that they're constructed. They're a little thinner. And then I have a really big wire one for the Monster. And they all wedge themselves in. So I don't have anything bungeed because they are actually all wedged together by the size of them up against the back seat. So they're not going to move around if I have to slam on the brakes, right?
right. And some people like the Gunner kennels, and I think the Varios. Some of those have to be tethered in the crate so that they don't move if you brake suddenly. So you just want to be like mine's, like very much like Joanne's. They're kind of wedged in there so they don't move very much when if I have to brake suddenly and all that. So and then there's I know one of our instructors, Erin, uses seatbelt harnesses for her dogs when they travel, and she's used that very, very successfully for many, many, many years, and that works just fine, like really, really well. So it really is to your liking and what your dog can tolerate, right? Because some of those seatbelts for the car, the dogs can get out of those, so you want to be real careful about that. So that's the thing. Cheryl, there's a good Facebook group for cars and crates. Oh wow, that's good to know. Thanks, Cheryl, for posting that. That's awesome. That's good to know because it's a big thing. Many years ago there was an accident with RV, and the dogs were crated, and one of the crates did break, and the dog got away, but luckily it ended well. It didn't end well as the owner passed on, and the dogs were rehomed, but they survived the accident, which was a great thing because that's all you want, right? You want the dog to survive the accident. So, and then the other thing is a lot of people have information on the crate in case something happens and there is an emergency, who to contact, all those basic things that you want to make sure you have the information so that your dogs can be taken care of if something happens to you while you're on the road, right? So it's really, really important. Your vet information and an emergency contact is the most important thing, like what to do with your dogs in case something happens. Yep, and important to attach that info and leashes to your crate. I have a little bag, a pouch to put my leashes in. But yeah, whatever works for you on making sure that that's in there. Because nobody plans to get into an accident, but you never know. It's always better to be more prepared than not, for sure. So,
yep.
And also depend on weather. So Joanne can actually talk a little bit about that because she just had to deal with that today.
That's my MO, I think, is weather. So, yeah, I think sometimes, you want to, it stinks to have to pack the ginormous bag of stuff, but when you have it and you don't need it, it's annoying. When you need it and you don't have it, you're like, oh, I totally could have packed that, right? So I know, like, for me, it was raining a lot this weekend. You want to sometimes think about that. If you're staying in a hotel or things like that, I always pack an extra roll of paper towels, right? Or extra hand towels, extra beach towels, whatever it is. right? So that I can make sure that I can wipe those dogs off if they get muddy, or for the hotel room or bed sheets or whatever, so we're not leaving muddy footprints around.
Right, right. Because, here's the thing, you guys, those of you who stay at hotels with your dogs, we really do need to be, as a dog community, we need to be very mindful of how we leave a hotel room, because many places have declined dogs anymore, or stopped allowing dogs because of some people that trashed the place, or left hair, or left a lot of mud, or the dog, urinated or went to the bathroom. And now then other people that are responsible aren't able to, you can't stay there with your dogs, which is really sad. So I think we need to be,
Yes.
ambassadors for dog travelers. You know what I mean? What did you say, Joanne?
Sorry. It's like, where's Joanne nights? Like, I go away and I come back. I said, speaking of pottying at hotels, so since this literally just happened to me, right? And you guys probably aren't the ones, it's probably more the random pet people, but right, when you come out that side door, don't let your dogs pee on the garbage can right there. Don't let your dogs pee on the bench or things that are right outside the door. Cold, it's rainy, it's icky, you just want to get it done and go back inside, but every other dog then is going to want to pee on that spot, and that just gets gross, right? People have to touch that to take out the trash. It's, to me, that's kind of the equivalent of, like, if you go to a trial, or you go somewhere, or you have, a nice mailbox outside your door, and like the dog's peeing on it all the time. So, right, just because it's there and you're staying somewhere else, think about the things that people have to touch or move or pass, or the smell of that in the summertime. Take your dogs out to the grass to an appropriate place to potty.
Right. And pick up. That's a big
And pick up.
And pick up. And if you see stray poop, pick it up. Because nothing is worse than being accused of, oh my gosh, it's the dog, they accuse your dog. So so that's really one of those things that you want to be mindful of as you go. And pack a sheet for the bed and put it on top of the bed. Yeah. My dogs don't sleep on the bed in the hotel, so I have a dog bed so I don't have to worry about that too much. But for those people who do, I definitely want to be thoughtful about that. Okay, so that's pretty self-explanatory. And again, there's a plethora of crates that you can choose from for safety for your dog. So it's your budget, what you want to spend, and there's a lot of information online about the different types of crates. And those of you, there's the Facebook group that Cheryl mentioned will give you some information about that and how that works and everything like that. So it's a
Yeah.
really good
I would make more comment about that as well, as if you are a trial sporter, which I know there's a lot of you that watch us, right, that do nose work trials or other things with your dogs. Just because you bought the $500, $800 crate that's awesome and is going to survive a crash, right? And I can't remember the brand of them, but they're the metal ones that have like the holes in the side. They don't have a lot of air.
Yeah.
So when it's 90 degrees in the Midwest and you're in a nosework trial, right, and that dog's in that crate during the day, you really need to be mindful of that. Yes, it's super safe, but it's not safe for sitting in summer. You know what I mean? So
right.
Just think about that before you go spend all the money on crates. Like, when are they most of the time in those crates in the car? Can you switch it? Is it easy? Or to buy the big expensive crate and then buy some more big expensive things to keep them cool in the summertime, right?
Yeah,
so,
which I do, because the crates I have are they have good ventilation, but I still have a big crate and a small crate and all that stuff. So I have dogs that are not really fond of it anyway. So Debbie had a question. What about if your dog gets anxious while driving? Is there any special way to calm the dog, or is it necessary to give them something? Debbie, yeah, here's a couple things you can do. Before you go on a big long road trip with your dog, you definitely want to get them acclimated to being in the car, in a crate in the car. So initially, you might end up just putting the crate in the car, putting the dog in the car, give them a couple of treats or a Kong, and not go anywhere. Right? Not go anywhere. Just put it in your house, take it out, make it a great place. Then you're going to drive maybe a couple of houses down, and all that. And I know it's difficult, especially if they have to go to the vet or to a class, but you want to really make it a good thing for them. I did, so there's things you can give them. So we tried the holistic route. We tried some theanine and Lactium. They're pretty natural. They're easy to get at Swanson Vitamins, and you can try those to help keep them calm. The other thing I've used for a dog that's a little bit whiny, when I bought Jive home when she was a puppy, she was a little whiny in the car. So we played the soft music for her, and she got stuff to chew on. And then it was still a little more persistent problem when I got her home. So what I did is I put a treating train on top, and it has a remote, and I was able to dispense treats when she was quiet. And that did the trick. In a couple of days, she was like, "Oh yeah, this is great." So there's a variety of things you can do. But Debbie, if you don't have to take them anywhere right away, you can just put them in the car, have them chew stuff for a little while, and then take them out. So the car becomes a really great place and a very comfortable place. Most of my dogs are really happy in a crate. Like now my lab she's fine in a crate. She's happy. She's relaxed. And it's not an issue. But you have to really make it a good thing for them, right? It's got to be, you just can't expect them to. And a lot of times too, Debbie, you want to figure out what is the cause of the problem. Is it the motion? Because a lot of times it's the motion. It might upset their tummy. So you can try giving, I did it with my dog. I gave him a little bit of ginger because as he got older, he was fine when he was younger. Then when he got older, he didn't like it. A little bit of ginger helped his stomach settle his stomach, and he was fine in the car after a while. So it really is depending on what is causing his stress, right? Is it the movement? Is it being in the crate? Because if it's being in the crate, you can work that outside, at home, and then you can put that crate in the car and all that. So you really want to figure out what's the problem. Is it the motion? Is it the crate? What is causing his stress? So you got to figure that out first, and then you can figure out how to make that better for your dog, right? And then you can give him a Kong to chew or whatever, but I would do it when the dog car is not moving, so that he makes that positive association with being in the crate in the car or in the seatbelt in the car or whatever. Because that's helpful too. They can sit there, or you can put they sell these little bolsters that you can, depending on how big your dog is, and you can put them in there and see if that helps. So there's ways around it. I would just definitely take the time, especially if you want to travel with your dog, how to help them be more comfortable with that. Joanne, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I would just say, think of the dog's history as well, right? So if you already have a dog and you want to get into the traveling piece, just ask yourself, how many places have they gone that weren't the vet or the groomer or the dog wash, right? Like,
right.
Do they have a lot of good experiences of going places? So that's, I just dealt with a dog who came to me and he was so panicked. I said, how many times do you have him in the car? Oh, not very often. Right. And so that's what it was. The dog had never had a good experience of going somewhere great in the car, just only bad places that, poke, prod, pull, all of those things. So, right. Make sure they have a lot of good experiences. Sometimes you put them in, get them out and throw some cookies on the floor. Right. Just let them, have a really, really great experience. Just like Nancy said.
Right. Because you don't know, you really want to figure out what the problem is. Is it the movement, or is it being in a crate in the car? But if you're very clear about what is the issue for the dog. Because if it's the crate, that's a separate issue. If it's the movement, it's another issue. So you want to be very clear what the problem is. So if the dog is crate's okay in the house, then it's not a crate problem. It might be just the movement of the car. So you might want to just get them used to, and then also taking them somewhere fun, like Joanne said, where they can have a good time and enjoy, wherever they go, it's going to be a good place. Not always a vet or the groomer. or anything where they're not going to have a good time. My dogs are used to going. Our dogs go to the vet, but they also go to do a lot of fun stuff too. So they never know what's gonna be the dealio for that. So so that's one aspect. And again, you want to look at whatever you choose. There's not a right or wrong. It's what's going to work for you, what works for your car. But I can't emphasize enough how not letting your dog be loose in the car is just not a good idea, no matter what. It's just not something you wanna you wanna ever do because it's so dangerous, especially those of you who have little dogs. Those little dogs become missiles, if you have to brake suddenly, right? And so you don't that's a tough gig, so, uh so, Aileen says she has a customer with a nervous, tiny dog. She would vomit nonstop while being transferred in the vans. I made sure she was in a tiny space secured while transferring her. Now she loves the car vans. It was also after making sure she desensitized and rewarded in the van and trying to, yeah, right. That's what I mean. You have to make that a good experience for the dog. Yeah, because sometimes the vomiting could, a lot of times dogs that vomit in the car, it's the motion that makes them, they get motion sickness. So, and it's unsettling in their stomach. And every time you put them in the car, they're like, oh no, here goes my stomach's going to be bothering me and I'm going to puke. And so it just becomes a vicious cycle. So you definitely want to take your time um, to desensitize your dog. And those of you, yeah, right? So that's what I mean. Katie has a great point. She said the dog chewed through every seatbelt in the car when it was leashed in. I know, right? So that's what I mean. You have to figure out what works. I prefer my dogs being crated. It just, they're more comfortable. They get to lie down. They get to relax. And they can, I give them bones sometimes or Kongs or other things that they can enjoy doing while we're driving, when we're on the road. So yeah, I really, I'm a big fan of crates, but not everybody is, right? Everybody, we lost Joanne again. Not everybody is a fan of crates, so I get it. So you might want to definitely look at different possibilities for you and your dog. Yeah, right, Kim, especially you have a lot of little dogs. Those little dogs, one sudden break and those little dogs will go flying. So it's just safer. I have two little dogs too, and they always travel. They are always crated because that makes me so nervous with the little ones. So, yep. And then, yeah, right. And Kim, and they get used to being in other places, but also the same thing. Your dogs are going to different places, fun places too. They go to the vet and the groomer and all that, but they also go to dog shows. They don't go to class. They get to have a really good time, aside from always going to the negative place or whatever. All right. So hopefully Joanne will show back up here in a minute. But anyway, so those are the things. So research the crates. I think there's so many things to choose from. I'll be honest with you. It took me a little while to just research everything. And the truth is, whatever works for you, whatever fits in your car, whatever's comfortable, something is better than nothing. So you definitely want to consider that. So now, if those of you, and somebody asked me to cover this. If you're picking up a puppy from a breeder or somewhere, most breeders will not fly dogs. Neither one of my breeders would fly the dogs. I had to drive to go get them. And one's in Pennsylvania and the other one's in upstate New York. So I had to go get those dogs both times because she would not fly them because they were puppies and it's too traumatic for them. So making sure that you can, there's a couple of there's a Adaptil, which is a little spray to help them relax in the car, making sure they have stuff to chew on. And then when you're transporting a puppy, frequent stops are your friend. Let them out, get them pottied, and making sure they're handling the ride really well. I know a lot of people tend to want to put that puppy in their lap, and that is not the answer. You could put the crate near you or behind you where you can reach and maybe throw treats in. But getting that puppy so used to being in your lap on the way to on the way, to be with you because it's whining or it's away from its litter mates is a concerning thing. So it's definitely something you want to consider and just put them in a crate nearby where you can toss treats in there, have Kongs and things that they can snuggle with or keep them busy while they're in the car and driving. Because it's one of those things that you want them to be comfortable right away, immediately, as if that's going to be part of your life. And the other thing, if those of you who are going on vacation, don't wait till a week or two before you go on vacation to start setting up all these things, right? You want to make sure you set it up beforehand, well in advance, so that when you go on the long road trip, everybody's happy, and you're in a better place to make sure you and your family have a good time. And the other thing is to pack for weather, right? If it's hot, make sure you have fans. Make sure you have rain gear. If you have coats or whatever you think you need for weather for the dogs. Water. Joanne just said some of the depending on where you go, and those of us who compete at different shows, especially nose work, you sometimes end up in a kind of rural place. So you might want to have some water in case the water it's well water and it might upset your dog's system. So you definitely want to think about that stuff, right? Because that can be tricky. Water, it's also automatic or whatever, but it's not. So you always want to make sure you have enough water on hand for you and for the dog. Because I'll be honest, I usually end up packing enough for them, but nothing for me. So you want to make sure you're able to get have for both dogs. Uh, so Susan said, repeated series of getting into the car several times a day helps teach them how to cope. Licky pad. Oh yeah, that's a great idea, right? A licky pad helped to make Rambo better with getting harnessed and safe. And when we're out, oh that's right, the licky mat to be able to get him in and out of the car and all that stuff. So that's a good idea. I use a cat carrier in the front seat to drive puppy home from Minnesota. Yeah, right. And so then you're right close to the dog. You can reinforce them for being in there and being happy and quiet and all that stuff. So that's really good. So yeah, so you want to be really thoughtful about because most breeders are not gonna anymore these days. They don't really fly dogs anymore. So, and about flying dogs, you want to definitely check with the airline because of all the issues that have been happening with emotional support dogs. These days, they're not really flying with dogs can be a little more trickier than they used to be. So you want to really think about that. And also, it is very difficult to have your dog get used to being flying. That can be pretty scary. The only time that would be a good thing is if you have a really little dog that you can carry in the cabin under the seat. And then that's okay. But if you have a big dog, like I'll be honest with you, I would probably never fly my dog because he'd have to go in cargo, and I just can't do it. Even though my dogs are pretty stable, I just too worried about that. So I'm just not really crazy about that. And it's a big deal because I don't like driving either, but I'd rather do that than take a chance on the plane. So just putting that out there for you. Um, so when you're able to, and the other thing is before you pick up your puppy, if you have a good relationship with that breeder, ask her to get her used to create the puppy by itself and all that before you go and pick up the puppy. So then that way the puppy has those skills before you go get it. So it's one of those things that you can make better for the puppy or have the your breeder or whoever you're getting the puppy from crate the puppy by itself for a little while so they can, be used to being in a crate by itself without their little mates. Because a lot of breeders don't do that. They keep the dogs with their little mates all the way to the end, and they have a hard time being by themselves. So definitely that's something you can ask the breeder to do for you if you have a good relationship with them, and they might just be able to crate the puppy by itself so that they get used to doing that. Anyway, so that yeah, right. And then that and the riding in the front seat, you and most of the cars nowadays, you can turn off the airbags too. So that's a good point, right? So uh, and staying at a hotel, right? So Uh, uh, that's why nowadays, some dogs are fine. Like my dogs are fine in a hotel, but some dogs can be a little barky and it's a little stressful. So a crate in a hotel, super helpful. And that's what I mean, crating. And I know I sound like a broken record, but teaching your dog to be okay in a crate in a hotel, it gives them a place to be safe and comfortable in their own space. So that way they don't have to worry about what's going on. So I always have a crate with me, even though my dogs are usually pretty good, but I always have one with me in case somebody gets fussy or worried or gets barky. Because again, you don't want to wear out your welcome when you cannot, when your dog can't be in a hotel because he's having a fit or he's barking or whatever. So, uh, yeah, and make sure the first day that you take them for in the hotel is not for a trial because that would be those of us who compete. And yeah, they can get diarrhea. So that's the other thing we wanted to chat with you about. So yeah, if you're gonna go in a hotel, make sure even if you and I know it sounds crazy, but if you have to stay at a hotel near your house or not, maybe an overnight or somewhere, where you can monitor and see how your dog does before you take him on a big long road trip would be helpful to see how he handles it. And for those dogs that really, really have a difficult time in a hotel, nowadays you can get a nice Airbnb that allows dogs. It's more like a home, and there's not a lot of traffic. And I think a lot of us that do dog sports are using those now more and more than ever before. I know I have quite a bit. Even though my dogs are fine in a hotel, I find it a little more comfortable. They have a yard, they can enjoy their time. So if I can find it, I I use it. So, so the other thing too, and then Michelle Earps actually brought that up is diarrhea, right? How does your dog handle traveling? Uh, you need to make sure you have to know how your dog handles traveling. So I usually carry, and I always have with me is the digestive, the my Honest Kitchen. It used to be called, oh my gosh, what was it? Uh, Honest Kitchen Digestive. Let me look that up. I have it all the time. Uh, digestive support, and it helps with diarrhea, especially on the road, in case they get something. Yeah, it's called a herbal digestive supplement. It works super, super well, and I use it all the time when I travel because the dog, in case I have, so I don't, my dogs don't usually get diarrhea, but I always have it in the event that there's, something happens, they get some bad water or they eat something they shouldn't. So I love it, and it works really well, and it's really it works pretty quickly. So I'm really happy. I've been very, very lucky with that. So I've been pretty happy with that. You also, if you have a good relationship with your vet, metronidazole, have it with you, have it available, so that you can have it right. It didn't let me post my herbal doc the thing. Okay. Um, use tops to prevent messes. Yeah, right. Because you want to make sure, and then you also, if your dog is constantly has diarrhea when it's in the car, you really need to work on the car situation. Just saying, right? Because diarrhea is a sign of stress, and the dog has diarrhea every time he gets in the car, then you might want to look at that, right? And be real careful. And you want to be careful that whatever you give your dog, like a Kong or whatever, that's not the first time you give it to him. That he's had it before. Like whatever. Like I usually take a bone or a Kong with peanut butter and pumpkin or whatever to keep everything comfortable. So you want to make sure you always have something like that in case something happens, that your dog gets, upset stomach or whatever. But one of the things you want to consider, if those of you who are again competing with your dogs or going on vacation, if your dog has bad diarrhea every time you travel, then that's a sign, right? That's dogs are not traveling well and they're having a hard time. So you want to make sure you keep their digestive system in balance when you're traveling. So the other thing is, and this goes without saying, right? You guys should have extra food extra food, extra water in the event that you're stuck somewhere. Like you can't come home, weather, you're stuck in a snowstorm. You want to make sure you have enough food that you can stay an extra day or two if you need to, and your dogs will have what they need. So it's one of those things. But again, diarrhea, a frequent diarrhea when you travel, you really need to address what's caused that anxiety, because basically he's anxious about traveling and he's not really crazy about it. Uh, so you definitely want to address that. We have a Dane adolescent who's a cruddy eater while on the road. Oh, okay. So he doesn't want to eat when he's out and about. Again, this is a little bit same, right? Stress. So there are, again, and that's the thing, right? You want to be careful, because if they're not good eaters and you start adding a lot of stuff to their food, uh, that can upset their stomach. So you want to make sure whatever you're bringing is going to be okay with them. So, Stephanie, you might consider, if you have chicken and rice, maybe take it with you if that's something he doesn't typically get. And that might help. That'll keep his stomach on check, keep his poop firm, while giving him something special to eat while he's on the road. So, again, things that you want to make sure that you're able to have. And Amy says, bring your poopy leash. So this is the only time I've used a retractable leash. One of my dogs didn't want to potty near me. He needed to go a little further away. So I got a retractable leash. And Amy has a really long leash. I think it's a 30 or 40 footer. The dog likes to go out to the end of that leash to go to the bathroom. So sometimes that's why they don't go to the bathroom, right? They need privacy or whatever it is. So again, those are things you want to try before you go on a road trip with your dog, because otherwise it can get kind of dicey, right? And those of you who, oh, it's a 50-foot, Amy. Yeah, Karen, that's the other thing. If you feed raw like I do, you definitely want to take some freeze-dried stuff in the event that um, you know, anything can happen. The may not have a refrigerator. You might not be able to put the food somewhere. All those kind of things. I feed raw, but I also feed kibble. So I always take kibble just in case of an emergency. My dogs will have something to eat if there's an issue. So those are all things to consider when you're out there, when you're traveling, right? To make sure you have it. But again, a lot of the stuff is you definitely freeze dried. Stella and Chewy's is a really good one. Instinct has a good formula. Primal is really good, very expensive. Both of those are, but they're pretty good. And as long as you're not, it's hard because I have two really big dogs, so it gets a little pricey. But again, if it's gonna keep their stomachs on check, I'd rather deal with spending a little money than having to clean up diarrhea or having a sick dog on the road, because that's very distressing when your dog's not feeling well. So freeze dried are good like that. I think Steve's also has a freeze dried. Uh, Steve's. I want to say they have a freeze dried brand as well. Steve's Real Food. Most of the raw food producers have freeze dried as well. So there's a whole bunch that you can choose from. Again, finding what works. Yeah, Steve Real Food also has freeze dried formulation. So yeah, most of them have. Open Farm is great too. Yes, I have used that as well, and that's really good stuff too. So again, it's what your dog is going to tolerate. And again, don't wait to go on the road to try those things. Try them when you're home, so you see if that's going to give them the diarrhea or whatever, because it will help you make a decision. Is it the travel that's causing the diarrhea or the food? If you're going to wait till you give them the food and then find out that your dog can't tolerate that, the road is not where I test it, right? You definitely want to make sure you test it when it's um, closer. Also, I use for those of you as summer's come approaching, for those of you who trial or are uh, spend some time on the road, Icy Breeze machine is one thing I have. It was not cheap, but it was wonderful. Uh, yes, yeah, Amy. Somebody already mentioned that. Yeah, you wanted to bring sheets to cover the bed and the couches and the Airbnbs because Amy is a big Airbnb person, which again I love it as well. And then it just makes it for you makes it a good guess whether you're staying in a hotel or an Airbnb, and you really have to look to find a good Airbnb, but they're out there depending on where you're going. So that's important. The other thing is your dogs should have a collar with, some they sell these embroidered collars with the name and phone number, tags, and or microchipped. In the event that something happens and your dog gets away, you can get your dog back. Really, really important. That's a big that's a big one, right? You want to make sure they have um a way to get them back to you, and make sure you need to keep all those things very up to date with that information on the dog. I know some people have the collar with the name and the phone number and all that stuff. So you definitely want to make sure you have that. So in case that happens, you're able to get your dog back. The other thing I wanted to reach out, and I know it goes, I know most for most of us it's common sense, but you really do not want to ever leave your dog unsupervised in a hotel room. Uh, the hotel rooms are, the dogs can get out of there. Ask me how we know. One of somebody that we know and love, her dog got out of the crate, out of the hotel room, and out of the hotel while she was out to dinner. So it's yeah, just don't do it. That's why you want them to be so comfortable in the crate in the car, because then you can take them with you, and then you can make sure you supervise things and keep things, keep them happy and safe, because when you're on the road with your dog, safety is like number one for you and for the dogs. So you definitely want to be careful. The other thing too is, um, you want to make sure. I know they sell these temperature gauges in the car, that you can monitor the temperature in the car, because leaving your dog in the car in a crate is pretty dangerous. Again, most of us that are dog shows, that is not a problem. But there are people who take their dogs, go to the store, leave their dogs in the car. Don't do that, because that the cars can heat up pretty. Unless you're right by there and you're not, the dog. You can keep an eye on the dog. Um, and nowadays, with all these changes, some people will not break your window because they see the dog. So you want to really be thoughtful about that, and be mindful of you can have a temperature thing that'll tell you if it's getting too hot in the car, and be careful to, and make sure the dogs, stay safe, for sure. Because, even, when you stop at a restaurant to go, on the road, you want to stop and go to the potty, and you want to make sure the dog stays safe. So you might have a remote start when the car stays on and it's locked while you go in, and things like that. So those are all things to consider when you're on the road. And the other thing you want to also take, going back to the digestive thing, is pumpkin. A couple of cans of pumpkin always have with you in your arsenal, in case your dog does get diarrhea. You're able to give them that to kind of bind them up a little bit. So because even the dogs with the strongest digestive that don't have much of a problem, you never know when that can happen. So you definitely want to make sure you have those things on hand in case you have that. Yeah, and Amy, that's true, because Joanne was just saying up where she was, they had well water and the water was not very good, so that can cause some stomach upset for the dogs as well. So it's one of those things you want to really think about. Water, I know it sounds, oh, it's fine, but no, it depends on, especially if you stay at an Airbnb. Sometimes you don't know if it's well water or what it is. So yeah, the dehydrated pumpkin is also good for traveling too. I think I used that once or twice, but they didn't like it as much as the canned pumpkin. So my dogs didn't really care for it as much. Yeah, perfect form. That's it. And now it's called something else. It's called digestive enzyme supplement, Amy. It's called something else, but perfect form. That's what I always carry that with me all the time. Shh, shh, shh. because that's one of those things you never know. You may not need it. Oh, and slippery elm is great too for upset tummies. So stuff to think about for your dogs. And again, don't wait until you have to go on a trip to figure that out. Because I can't tell you how many people we have calling me at my business that are looking for a dog sitter when they're going on vacation next week. Well, so people do that too. They want to uh, put their dog at a boarding situation, or take the dog without having prep the dog to be able to handle a trip. Because while you think it's so easy, it isn't. It is not. It's still stressful for the dogs as it is for you. Even for us, taking everything, make sure we don't forget everything. Going on a vacation on a road trip is very, very challenging. So as it is for the dog. So you definitely want to make sure you don't wait. You can go on a day trip to see how your dog handles it. You can go further away and somewhere else and take a day trip and see how your dog handles it, where you're not overnight. Where you can see how he does in the car for a long time. Where you can see how he handles, going on pottying, and how he handles a long trip in the car. That's one way to do it, right? Take a day trip, because this is what I've done with my rescue dogs. Uh, my the puppies I just got, that now they're almost 5 years old. They used to go with me everywhere and to work every day. So riding in a car is just was part of their life from day one. So it wasn't a problem. But for those of you who dogs don't go very many places, and you really want to make it, you want to, again, day trip or something like that would be a really great place to start and be able to do that. So, and Joanne's phone died, so hopefully she'll charge it, because she's out on the road by herself, which is a bad thing. Uh, anyway, so those are things that you want to think about. The other thing I want is, so how many of you take your dog on vacation? I know most of the folks that are online are dog competition people, so they travel with their dogs all the time. But those of you who aren't, oh yes, flashlight for night poop. You got that right. And also make sure you have towels and things like that in your car in case you have bad, mud or whatever. The other thing you want to make sure you have is a first aid kit. You want to have a decent first aid kit for your dog so that you can take care of anything relatively quickly. You want to have Benadryl. You want to have the perfect form for the tummy. You want to have all those things that you might need in case of an emergency. You want to also learn how to, you want to, in case your dog gets hypothermia or something, you want to have something to warm him, a heat stroke, all those kind of things. You want to be prepared and have a first aid kit. You want vet wrap in case they cut themselves or whatever. It's better to be prepared. I cannot tell you. We had at a trial, we needed to get vet wrap. A dog cut its foot on I don't know what, so we had to wrap that foot. So, uh, bloat buster for narrow shelter breeds. Yep. So all those things you want to make sure you have a first aid kit. And also, when you're staying someplace, you want to look up veterinarians in the area, emergency vets, and all those things, so that you make sure that you can take good care of in case something happens. Oh yeah, good one. Hydrogen peroxide. You got that right. And remember, hydrogen peroxide has to be fresh, right? If it's old, it doesn't work as well. So you need to be able to have fresh hydrogen peroxide in the event your dog's a swallower, or tends to swallow things. So you definitely want to have that on hand to make sure that they're you can use it successfully. If you have old hydrogen peroxide, doesn't work as well. So just be aware. Uh, so you want to be clear, and you want to know like where you're staying, where the nearest vet is. Always check that, because you never know what can happen. We've had many emergencies when I was at a trial or at my my facility, we've had emergencies, so we make sure we have the vets on hand to make sure that they can, you know, we can take care of the dogs and all that stuff. So those are all things to consider. Uh, the other thing is, if you need to board your dog, again, don't wait until you have to go on vacation to be able to have to do that. And your dogs, you want to find somebody, or if you're not interested in doing that, finding someone who can come and dog sit at home if your dog has a hard time um, traveling, right? Or having, or until you get him to the point where he's going to be more comfortable traveling on a more regular basis. But you know, most of us that do other things or train their dogs more regularly, the dogs are used to being in the car and driving around and doing all that stuff. Where um, some dogs that stay home, they don't get to go too many places. So you definitely want to make sure that you know, even if you have to drive somewhere for their walks, right? So they get used to driving and going somewhere and doing something fun, going for a walk or a run or whatever. So those are all things to consider. Anyway, I think if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer. The other thing is you want to definitely take the other thing I forgot to mention. When you do go on a trip, you oh, yes, Stephanie, a list of questions to interview a pet sitter to come into your home. Well, uh, definitely want to figure out if that's a great idea. I maybe might come up with that and post it on my Facebook page because that's a really good thing to consider, right? How do you, you know, how they take care of your dog, or how they, when they're walking your dog, or how much experience they have, and also check references. That's number one. And you want to get a nice list of references that you can go back to. But I will, Stephanie, I will definitely look at that and see about doing that. The other thing is you want to have some Lactium and some theanine with you in the event that your dog gets scared of something or anxious or whatever, or that they get a little stressed out. That'll help things calm down. That's not real medication, right? It's more holistic, but it'll help. Or Composure Pro works great too. So always having those on hand, even if your dog, like my dogs, are usually not worried about much, but in the event they got worried about something, I want to be able to have that to be able to help them out and make them feel better or less stressed out. Fido had to make his cameo appearance tonight. Because I just got back from a trip, so they're wondering why I'm not giving them any attention. Anyway, so those are some basic things that I think are necessary and that you want to have on hand. And I will I'm not sure how to. I might put it on my Facebook page. A list of some of the stuff we talked about that you should have, like a packing list or whatever, so you can be able to hand it out. I just didn't get a chance to work on that because I didn't think I was going to be able to make it tonight. So I can do that. And I like the idea of questions for the pet sitter to come to your home, because yeah, I would finding a good pet sitter is really hard, and it would be nice to be able to do that. I mean, I know the questions I would ask, so but putting them in writing would be much better. So, all right. Anybody have any questions? All right. Thank you all for joining me tonight. It was yeah, that would be right. A good list. That would be great. So I think we can make that happen. So I can make sure I have it for you on Google Docs or something, so that we have your information. So yeah, that'll be something that you can have access to and be able to use. So that'd be great. All right. Thank you all. Have a great night. We'll see you next week. Bye.